Hi, I'm Keisha Ellis, Executive Director at Hands for Hunger, and thank you for tuning in to our very first Food for Thought discussion. I sit down with Katie Martin, who is the Executive Director of the Institute for Hunger Research and Solutions at Connecticut Food Bank Food Share. She is recognized as a thought leader on food security issues and has over 25 years of experience developing and evaluating holistic solutions to hunger. She earned a PhD in nutrition science and policy from Tufts University and has presented her work at dozens of regional and national conferences. Katie is the author of a new book titled Reinventing Food Banks and Pantries: New Tools to End Hunger. It was published in March of 2021. We're really excited about this conversation, and I have to say thank you to our sponsor. This episode of Food for Thought is powered by Alive. Hello, Katie. It is so nice to have you here. It's so nice to have this time to just kind of pick your brain and kind of get some of all that information you have into my brain. How are you?
I'm doing great, and it's such a pleasure to be with you here today.
Well, thank you. I actually got your book, and it already has dog ears. I haven't had it that long, but I've already started making notes and highlighting and underlining sections, and I'm really excited about it. And this little book, it's really full of so much information and just so many ideas for what I know Hands for Hunger wants to do, and really just ideas and ways for us to truly reach our goal, which is a hunger-free Bahamas, which, as I know is the case for you as well. We don't say that lightly. We don't just say that, that's a catchphrase that we tell our donors. It's something that we actually mean and actually believe in. We think that, it is possible to have a Bahamas where everyone has access to 3 healthy, nutritious, and fortifying meals each day.
I couldn't agree more. This is such a preventable problem. And I think we just limit ourselves sometimes by our own willingness and imagination to dream bigger.
Absolutely. For the past 12 years, Hands for Hunger has rescued and delivered fresh surplus food to our partner agencies, right? And this is the language that we used, Hands for Hunger, as a food rescue organization, and our partner agencies were the community groups that distributed the food to people in need in their communities. We never really used the term food bank or food pantry. Could you define those terms for us? What is a food bank? What is a food pantry? What's the difference between those two?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I spent some time talking about this in the book because I think it's an important distinction, even though I will say that not every food bank calls themselves a food bank and not every food pantry calls themselves a pantry. But in broad terms, a food bank is typically a regional organization. In the States, we typically have a food bank that serves multiple counties or an entire state. And then that food bank stores, warehouses, and distributes food to other partner agencies, other food programs, meal programs, mobile programs that then distribute food directly to individuals. And for me, I think that the distinction is helpful because a lot of people misunderstand the roles that we play in our communities and the greater impact that we can have when we don't know the difference between a smaller food pantry and a larger food bank.
Right, exactly. And I mean, now that we're using these terms, it makes a lot of sense just for how Hands for Hunger would operate, and that's what we did, right? We collected the food and stored a lot of it, and then, trusted our local food pantries, our community agencies, to distribute it. That's really helpful, and we're excited now because we have now kind of taken on the other role as well as a food pantry as well. So we're still operating as a food bank where we're distributing food to other pantries across the island and across the Bahamas, and we're now also kind of taking the leap to becoming a pantry ourselves. But before we talk about our pantry, I want to talk more about what food insecurity is and how we can determine if a person is food insecure or not. So for the past 4 years, Hands for Hunger has conducted a food insecurity survey where we ask people different questions to kind of determine the level of food insecurity in the Bahamas. And to be honest, Katie, kind of the more direct questions never sat right with us. We don't like to ask people, so are you employed or unemployed? Or, prove to me that you are food insecure. We always felt that, that doesn't really get to the root of what we're trying to find out about food insecurity. So we would ask questions like, do you worry about not having enough food to eat? Or how often do you skip a meal because you do not have enough food or enough money to buy food? And I saw that in your book, you mentioned similar questions being used to measure food insecurity in the US. Is there a benefit to asking these kinds of questions, more so than the specific questions about unemployment and income levels?
I think there really are. The U.S. Department of Agriculture has a set of standardized and validated questions to measure food insecurity. And I know these have been used internationally, so this is a really great place to start. And it sounds like you're framing your questions very, very similarly. These questions were based on a lot of qualitative interviews with people in the 1980s in the US who were struggling to get enough food for their families. And some researchers asked families about their coping strategies. What would they typically do when they were running out of money to buy more food? And the set of 18 questions follows those coping strategies. There are also a validated set of a simplified version of 6 questions, and there's even a set of 2 questions that are even used in clinics and hospitals to measure food insecurity. So this is a really great place to start. And I think it frames food insecurity from the context of developed countries where it's not a matter of not having enough food because there isn't food available. It's rooted in poverty and other issues. So it gets at more the nuances of worrying about having enough food.
Exactly.
And I think the other important piece is when you have these types of measurements, some people may choose to be unemployed for a whole host of different reasons that may not speak to their food insecurity status.
Exactly. One thing that I found interesting in your book is you write about how people kind of cope with food insecurity and the different levels of it. And what you said is that, people with children, the children are kind of the last to experience the food insecurity. And I thought that was really interesting because it really shows the human factor and the connectedness of kind of all people across the globe, because we found that it's the same thing in the Bahamas as well. If a single mother realizes that she just doesn't have enough food for everyone, then the children are absolutely fed first, right? And then the mother, she goes without. And it's when you find that the children are now also going without food, that's when you realize that, hey, this situation has probably been going on for a lot longer than the children realize.
You're exactly right. As moms, we want to protect our kids, and that's part of those coping strategies, that when it reaches the kids, it's a more severe scenario.
Yes. So another thing that I kind of wanted to ask about is, in your experience with food banks and food insecurity, is there a group that kind of experience food insecurity more than other groups? Are there any demographics that kind of say that, this type of household will experience more food insecurity than another group?
There really are, and I think this speaks to the root causes of food insecurity and the systemic injustices and inequalities that put certain groups of people more at risk than others. So certainly in the United States, I would think the demographics are probably a little bit different in the Bahamas, but historically, single moms, and particularly single Black and Latina moms are at highest risk for food insecurity for a host of reasons. We know that people of color in general have higher rates of food insecurity than Black, non-Hispanic households. And again, those are issues that are rooted in inequalities, structural and systemic inequalities that exist that make it harder for certain groups of people to afford and access healthy food.
Absolutely, and you kind of touched on that earlier when you said that, food insecurity in the US, and it's the same for the Bahamas as well, isn't because there's not enough food in existence, right? It's really just about how that food is distributed and who has access to that food. And another thing that we've started reminding people at Hands for Hunger, we've kind of started telling people, hey, we're on a tiny string of islands, right? When the COVID-19 pandemic hit, and we saw it as well after 9/11, right? We're so tied to the U.S. economy and distribution from the U.S. We realized that, hey, we're all food insecure if the ships don't come in. Right, and it's not so much about how much money you have in your pocket or your bank account. It's about do you have access to the food that is available?
Right, absolutely. And local food sovereignty is a really important issue of how do we ensure that if there are outside forces that make it difficult to get enough food, how are we protecting ourselves to make sure that we all have access to fresh, healthy, safe food?
Absolutely. So, can we talk a little bit about the scarcity mentality? This is another thing that you mention in your book. What is the scarcity mentality, Katie?
So, I highlight the scarcity mentality for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's fairly easy to think about just as we were describing those coping strategies that people go through, if you're worrying that you're not going to have enough food at the end of the week, at the end of the month, you're focused on lack. You're focused on not having enough. Your resources are scarce. Mm-hmm. And so you have to have tough coping strategies, tough trade-off decisions about paying for food or paying for rent, paying for medicine, paying for childcare. A lot of people are dealing with that sense of lack on a week-by-week, month-by-month basis. Mm-hmm. And when you're in the scarcity mentality, you can't plan for your future as well because you're really focused on just getting by today.
Yes.
And so you're keeping your head down, and this is what I need to do to take care of my family today. The second reason I bring up the scarcity mentality is that we also see this at the organizational level. So food pantries and food banks that are serving people in need, and we are nonprofit organizations, so we definitely have to hustle for our funding. We can fall prey to that same scarcity mentality of focusing on lack, that we don't have enough space, we don't have enough time, we don't have enough volunteers, we don't have enough resources, and there's so many people in our community that need help and need food. So we should just hunker down and just focus on providing food for people today. And I think our journey is to help individuals to become more stable, more food secure, so that they can be planning for their future and not focused on just today. And at the organizational level, the more that we can stabilize our own funding and resources so that we can plan for our future and more holistic wraparound services to address those root causes so that we're not just providing food for today.
Right. So what are some of the ways that you think we can work with our clients to help them overcome the scarcity mentality, to kind of help them be better prepared for the future?
Well, I am so excited in hearing from you and your dreams for Hands and your pantry. And focusing on client choice, which to me is one of the most fundamental things that you can do within a food pantry setting. When you have people who are worried about having enough and they have to wait in line, and then they get to the line and they're handed a bag of food, it's stressful because you don't know if the food in the bag is necessarily the type of food that you need for your family. Is that the food that's going to help you through the week? when you design a food pantry to offer choice, where people can shop for their food with dignity, like they would in a grocery store, that really helps to reduce that anxiety and stress. It's just a much more welcoming and empowering environment to be in. That's a stepping stone. And then I think that opens up the door to provide other wraparound services to build relationships with guests and customers to identify what are the other supports that they need beyond the food. But choice is a really important first step.
Wow, that's really interesting, Katie, because what I'm hearing is that you're saying that, the anxiety that comes along with not having enough or feeling like you don't have enough or, it being a fact that you don't have enough for everything that you need. So part of what adds to that anxiety is the idea that, well, here I am at this place to get help, but I still don't even know what it is I will be getting helped with, right? So you think that just the act of having clients be able to choose what goes into their shopping bags, that in itself kind of alleviates some of the anxiety that our clients feel?
I really do. And for many people who are struggling with poverty, there's so little aspects of their life where they feel that they have control over. So many things are outside of their control. And allowing people to have the dignity to choose their food is an empowering step. And I think just that sense of breaking down the barriers between the giver and the receiver and making it more equitable, so when people come to receive help, it's humbling to ask for help.
Yes.
When they come to get help, if we know, hey, we trust you to select your food, here, we trust that you know what's right for your family and the food items that you need, that can go a long way to build the self-confidence, to build the empowerment to make other choices.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, with all of that being said, we are so excited about our Client Choice Pantry, right? We're really excited about being able to kind of offer this service to the families that we help. And, our donors are supportive of it and, everyone's excited. But, Katie, in the back of everyone's mind is the same question. How do we make sure that clients don't take too much? How do we make sure that it's orderly and, we don't have people kind of taking more than their share, whatever that means. What are kind of some perhaps real experiences that you've had with this, or what are some real strategies that you think we should have in place to make sure that, it doesn't just end up being the first 10 people clearing out the entire pantry?
No, it's a great question, and it's a very common concern. Typically, in food pantries that I know of that offer client choice, almost all of them still set limits on how many food items you can take within a food category. So, for example, if you have a section of your pantry designated for soup, you might have signage up that says, please select 2, or sometimes it's even based on household size. So maybe you have 2 levels, 2 tiers for a smaller size family or a larger size family of the amounts that people can take. But then within the category of soup, an individual can choose which type of soups they want to bring home to their family.
Right.
And I can tell you that there is also empowerment in the choice to say no to a food item. Mm-hmm. So I think you're right that the common concern is that people will take too much. But I can tell you that there's also a sense of pride when someone can say, no, I don't need any, beans today. I have plenty of beans there. I know there are other families that need this more than I do. I don't need to take it.
Yes.
I think you're going to see that. And I'll just say that I'm so impressed with the direction that you all are moving, because we know that offering client choice is a best practice. It is absolutely a better way to run a food pantry than handing bags of food. But here in the United States, it is not standardized, and there are many, many food pantries who have not made this transition yet. So I am so thrilled to see that you're bringing this to the Bahamas.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And we are excited as well. Have you worked with client choice pantries in the U.S.? Could you tell us a little bit about what it's like in some of the pantries that you've visited or worked with?
Yeah, it's an amazing transformation when I've seen it happen, when there are, and really for everyone involved. So I've seen the transitions of multiple food pantries that have been what I call traditional food pantries, where people will wait for food, and sometimes they'll even select items from on a menu, for example, but then the volunteers and the staff often literally go behind a wall. They go to another part of the pantry and they bag up the food and then they hand it to the client. I mean, you can just really see the power dynamic there of I'm at your mercy, I'm telling you what I want, but then you have the power to select the food. And when you break down the barriers and you invite people to come to the other side of the wall, you invite people to select their food, it truly is just, you can see that sense of like ownership of feeling better about yourself. And I know there are typically a lot of concerns among volunteers and staff of how this is going to work, how it's going to run, that it's going to take more time. And without exception, 100% of the time, I've seen it is just a better way to run the pantry. And volunteers and staff will say, why did we wait so long? We should have done this before.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you. That was actually really inspiring because, these are the same questions that we're having. Can we do it? Will it take more time? Will we be able to serve everyone? So it's really inspiring to know that in your experience, it really does work better once we kind of trust ourselves and trust our clients, right? When you do charity work sometimes, and I think this is universal, sometimes it's easy to kind of forget the humanity of the people that you're serving. And it's not that you think less of them, it's not that you think that they're less than human by any means, but when something becomes a job, it's very easy to just kind of think of the most efficient way to do something without taking into consideration the fact that you're dealing with people and people who are in a vulnerable place.
That's right. And I write a lot about this in my book of really moving away from a pure transaction, that when we're focused on, we're just trying to move food, it becomes a transaction.
Yes.
We're just moving food as efficiently as possible. And, we've certainly seen this during the pandemic. And in many ways we've had to, because we weren't able to offer choice typically, and we had to, maintain public health standards. But when you remove those barriers between the giver and the receiver, when you allow people to choose their food, it gives you an opportunity to build relationships, to have it be more relational, to understand what are the food items that people are looking for, what's going on in that person's life that makes it difficult for them to get enough food. You realize how much you have in common, as opposed to differences, and then that really can build towards transformational change.
Absolutely, and that's how we get to the next step that you discussed, which is, getting people off of food assistance, getting people in a place in their lives where they can provide for themselves and their family the way, all of us strive to, So absolutely. Katie, thank you so much. Thank you so much. The book it really is very interesting, amazing, and the kind of tips that you have in the book are concrete things. These are things that we can actually start thinking about and doing immediately. So I really appreciate that. I appreciate all the work that you've put into this. So thank you.
You're very welcome. I'm so glad it's making an impact for you, and I know it will for many, many people in your community. So thank you.
Thank you for tuning in. This conversation really left me feeling inspired, motivated, and it reinvigorated my dedication to ensuring that we end food insecurity in the Bahamas. I hope that you feel the same way. Thank you for supporting Hands for Hunger. Thank you for believing in us and our bold plans. We really appreciate your support. Everything that we do is because we have the support and the donations, of course, from the community. So thank you. For more information, visit our website, www.handsforhunger.org, or of course, check us out on social media, Hands for Hunger on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.